thank you so much for joining me today. This video is going to be a declutter. Right now I'm doing a hit and switch project pan where I'm cycling through pretty much every product in my collection, almost every product, and using it a certain amount of times and then moving on to another one. And as a result, I've been able to actively use a lot more products in my collection. And I found that a lot of them are just not performing the same, or they're not my style anymore. They're just not something I want to reach for. A lot of these are perfectly good, and I'm going to pass them on to friends and family. I usually do 1 or 2 declutters a year, and this is just one of those time. We can call it spring cleaning if we want, but these have got to go. I'm going to go in the order of eyes, lips, face, and so I have 3 eye products that I'm going to be passing on. They're all eyeshadow palettes. The first eyeshadow palette you probably won't be surprised by, and that is the Colored Rain Queen of Hearts palette. This was one of my focus palettes in January, so I talked about it more in my February update. And I also talked about it in a recent eyeshadow tag I did, where this used to be a favorite and it's not a favorite anymore, and I'm struggling with grappling with that. I don't know why, but the color story and also the formula are just not favorites anymore, and I think it's time for it to go. I've had it. It's one of my oldest palettes, and I do think it's time for me to retire it. Another one I don't think I've ever really mentioned is this one from the Juvia's Place. It's the Taupes. This is a really unique color story in that a lot of the undertones for these shades I don't have in my collection. And I do prefer smaller palettes versus bigger palettes, but this is just not something I'm going to reach for. I really like the colors. Every time I open it, I think, oh, I should use that more. But realistically, I'm not going to grab for this. I just know I'm not going to do that. And I couldn't even consider this like a travel palette or anything because there's no dark shade in here that I would use as a liner or as something in the crease to make it darker. So it's not a complete palette on its own. And this is still relatively new in my collection, so I'd like to pass it on to somebody while it's still in really good condition. And the third one, I don't know if you'll be surprised by it. You might be, but it's the Natural Lust palette from Too Faced. This is the palette, one of the palettes I was focusing on in the month of March. And I got really close to using every single shade from the palette, and as a result I got a real good look at how this formula has changed, and I do think that it has gone bad. Some of the shimmers were never really that great to work with in the beginning, and that shade here, Peacocking, is probably the best example of that. It was never really the best performing shade, but whenever I used it wet, it always looked really pretty. Now the only shade that I think is still performing in the way that it should is this shade here, Too Good. It's like a mid-tone taupey shade. I have plenty of these in my collection. I'm certainly not going to keep the whole palette just for this. I bought this when it was on super clearance, and I think it was well after it had been originally released. So I'm assuming this palette is a lot older than how long I've owned it. And even though I do like the color story in here, and I like the looks that I created for the most part, I just found that, especially with this purple shade here, I used a lot of this in a really beautiful purple look. And then I looked at my eyeshadow again later in the day, and it had faded off a lot, and I went back in to test it. Like I took a brush and I put some more on top to see if that's just how it looks. It's just not as pigmented as I thought it was, but it was definitely noticeable where the new shadow was and where the old shadow was. So the lasting power isn't working, and if it doesn't last, even though I use an eyeshadow primer and a setting spray and I don't have super oily eyelids, then it's just really no hope for this. So I do think that this has expired. So now that we've talked about the 3 eye products, let's move on to lips. I have 3 very disappointing products here. These are very new in my collection, and I was so excited about them. These are the NYX Suede Matte Lip Liners, and I really like these colors. This one here in Violet Smoke, I thought that this was going to be kind of like the pencil version of Perla from Stila, which is one of my favorite lip colors. It's a really cool tone purple color. And I bought 2 other ones, a pinky purple and then a plummy purple, because those were colors that I felt I was missing in my lip liner collection. I do really like the regular lip liner formula from NYX. Yeah, it's just the NYX lip pencil formula. The packaging is almost exactly the same, except for the packaging on the suede one is a little bit more matte. And I own the majority of the lip liners from that line, and then these were the 3 colors that I felt like I was missing, so I picked these up just thinking that they would be similar enough, and these are not the same at all. The NYX lip liner ones are a little bit drier, which I prefer whenever I'm trying to carve out and make my lips more symmetrical. I do want a slightly stiffer formula. These ones are stiff to the point where they can't even actually apply any pigment. Like whenever I wore Violet Smoke on my lips for the first time, I was so disappointed. It didn't show up at all. Like, I don't know if these are just dried out or what, but they are just not good. They are so stiff to the point that I can't actually get them on my lips. Like on my dry hand here, I can get a little bit of pigment if I really press down hard, but I can't actually get it to be opaque or pigmented enough on my lips, even if I go over multiple times. It just doesn't work. And there is a chance that I just got really old formulas whenever I ordered these, but I don't really want to take that chance and try more. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to get rid of these even though I just bought them. The other two lip products I want to talk about are two of the oldest products in my lip collection, and they are liquid lipsticks. The first one is the Jordana Sweet Cream Matte in the shade Creme Brulee, and the other one is Stila Como. I used to love this purple color. I used to wear this to concerts. I used to wear it any chance I could get when I was going out. This and some kind of like sparkly silvery eye was like my go-to look. Unfortunately, I have not worn a bright lip color out in public for quite a few years now. Obviously, because most of the places I go where I'm in public, I'm wearing a mask. And in general, like most of the people in the beauty community, at least on YouTube, we're kind of falling out of love with these super pigmented, tight, long-lasting liquid lip formula. So this is just not something that I'm going to get much use out of anyway. And both of these are over 4 years old. I bought these both in 2018. And I just don't feel comfortable putting these on my lips anymore. I do have one liquid lipstick that is also from 2018, and it's the Dose of Colors liquid lipstick in the shade Campfire. This is a beautiful burnt orange, and I'm not going to use this on my lips anymore, but I am going to try to use it as a cream blush. That's how I used up my liquid lipstick from ABH in the shade Crush. It was a very similar color to Creme Brulee here. This is a much more pigmented color, and it is not really like an everyday blush color for me, but I do want to give it a try, see if I can use it as a cream blush, and I'll let you know if I end up keeping it for that reason, no longer using it on my lips, or if I do decide to declutter it as well. She is on the chopping block, and hopefully I can make it work. Now for face products, like I said, in my hit and switch project pan, I have been rotating a lot of my cheek products, especially my highlighters, blushes, and bronzers. And after giving them more use and playing with them more, I am realizing that the color or the formula is just not really something I want anymore. And so for pretty much all of these except for one, there's nothing wrong with them, and I am gonna pass them on to friends and family. And then one I think is maybe a little bit too old. So one that I'm currently trying to use in my hit and switch project pan is this Flower Trio. This is the Shimmer and Strobe highlighting palette, and mine is the lighter version, Champagne Shimmer, which is the lighter of the two versions I think that they have. And when you look at the colors, like number one, the texture on it just makes it look even prettier, and those colors do look really beautiful. I do on occasion like a more pinky highlight, but this gold is just definitely too gold, like it's too dark for my skin tone, and then this light one is a little bit too light for my skin tone, and these are just very, very blinding highlights, and there really isn't an easy way for me to tone them down to the level that I want on an everyday basis. So I just have to be really careful when I apply these, and that's just not really my preference anymore when it comes to highlight. And I don't like using those light cool tone pinky highlights anymore on my cheeks. I feel like that's just a little bit too bright. So with not all the shades working for me and the formula being a little bit too bright for my preferences, I am going to pass this on to a friend. I have a friend in particular that I think will really like this, so I'll pass this on to her. And that's a shame because this one I really wanted for a long time. I saw Andrea Mattiliano talk about it, and I saw it online, I saw the swatches, and I just knew I really wanted it, even though I'm not like a face palette type of person, and I certainly wasn't back when I was purchasing this, but I thought I could make it work, and I'm realizing now that I can't. Another duo here, this was a free gift with purchase from Kosas. It's one of their pressed powder duos in the shade Papaya 1972. I made an order from the Kosas website during the Black Friday sales last year, and this came as a free gift with that. And I was pretty excited because I have heard good things about these duos, but I think people talk more about the cream duos than they do the powders. The peach side, the blush, beautiful color, very pigmented and very powdery though, so do be careful if you have this because it's very easy to go overboard. This side here, I have tried to make it work. It doesn't work as a highlighter. Like, it's pretty much just a matte powder. Like, it seems like it would have a little bit of satin to it, but it's so powdery that it kind of takes down any shine that you could possibly get from it. And it's just such a weird in-between shade that I can't really use it as a matte highlight. I can't use it to set my eyeshadow primer. Like, there's really no way for me to use this. And since I'm not crazy about the formula of half of the product, and I have mentioned before, I don't need any more peachy blushes. It's not an everyday shade that I go for anyway. I think I can pass this on. Another duo. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised about this one, and it's the Cover FX duo in the shade Soft Peach. I did go in and try to use the shimmery side a little bit more because I usually only used it in conjunction with the matte side. And when I used it on its own, it was just okay. Like, it's not really the look I'm trying to go for. And this is a really beautiful color, but I don't need this much peach blush in my collection. I already have a handful of peachy blushes that I like. I don't need this just sitting and aging. I'm not going to reach for it over the other ones. And I'd rather give it to a friend while it's still very new and very in good quality, and maybe they can get some more use out of it. So I'm going to pass this one on. I have two more face products. One of them is another gift with purchase. This was from IT Cosmetics, and this is one of their powder foundations in the shade Fair Light. And it's actually too dark for me when I use it as even if I just use it as a light setting powder and just do a light dusting, it's too yellow and too dark for my skin tone. And I don't mind having some face products that don't match me perfectly because, you know, if I get a little bit of sun or if I wear fake tan or anything like that, I can kind of adjust it and make it work. Powders are a little bit harder to adjust because you can't really mix it with other powders as easily as you can liquid foundations. And I've barely touched this. It's brand new. I might as well just pass it on to someone that it might work for without me having to like bend over backwards to make it work for me. And then the last one is, I've been going back and forth on this one for a while. It's the Marc Jacobs bronzer, the Omega bronzer in the shade Tantric. I remember wanting this so bad when I first got it, and I used it a ton. I really liked it, and then I found out that there was an air bubble in the dome and it completely shattered. And so I repressed it. Pretty sure it shattered again, so I had to press it again. On top of that, the packaging is broken, so it doesn't close all the way. And because it's so powdery and so prone to breakage, I just worry it's gonna make a huge mess. And even if I did want to try to pan this, like maybe I turn it into a loose powder bronzer, or I just take a little bit of it and I put it into a smaller container, it's too dark for me now. I feel like I've gotten paler over the years. Maybe it's just after years of spending all of my time indoors or what, but I just don't have the skin tone for this to work anymore. And maybe it never worked for me. Maybe it was always too dark and I just preferred a really bronzy look. This is just a ticking time bomb. I just imagine I'm gonna open my drawer one day and this is gonna be exploded and making a huge mess. And I've had it for so many years, it's so old and it's such in poor condition that I don't even feel like I can give this away to somebody. So I am unfortunately just gonna have to dispose of this. I just need to move on. I need to let it go, show some love, and enjoy my other bronzers without this mentally holding me back. So that is everything I have to talk about for my declutter. I am really sad to see some of these go. Some of them I'm really ready to let go. I need to move on and not like let them hold me back or weigh me down. And a lot of times whenever I do declutters, it acts as a lesson for me to really understand what products and what colors and formulas work for me. For example, knowing that I got rid of 3 duos or trios shows me that I likely don't need to purchase more of these moving forward because they just don't end up working for me unless every single shade in the duo or trio works. And this Too Faced palette, I got this when it was heavily discounted and it was much later than the original release. I think this was like a holiday release or something. And so I was already buying it when it was older. Plus with it being 30 shades, it's a humongous palette. That's not really something that I remember to reach for all the time. I have plenty of other eyeshadows. I don't need to keep purchasing large 30 pan palettes anymore. And so whenever something like this does go on sale or something, I can more clearly remember why it's probably not the best purchase. And maybe this will help me with my spending habits moving forward. I'm not saying I'm never gonna buy an eyeshadow palette again, or I'm never gonna buy a face powder or a duo again. I'm just gonna take these lessons that I'm learning from my declutters and apply them for my future spending habits. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. That's everything I have to talk about. I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.